Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to go pro with Jeremy Torisk. My next guest is named Marcia Dashko, and she is an inspiring speaker who will provoke your thinking and elevate it for bold action. She's a catalyst for strategic leadership, transformation, and innovation. She speaks to and works with leaders to challenge their thinking and to realize results never before achieved. For more than 25 years, she has passionately been guiding strategic innovation and transformation in Fortune 500 companies and private startups, school districts, and government agencies, along with nonprofits. She speaks about pivot also, and she has been a management and marketing teacher throughout the country at 6 different universities. Please welcome my guest, Marcia Dashko.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm so happy to be here today with you.
Me too. Thanks for coming on. I know it was we do things quick here at the Cigar Pack, right? Like, hey, I'll be in the show. Let's do it. Time is precious. Let's get it on. So I always start my show in the to an homage to one of my mentors, my teachers. His name is Steve Noodleberg. So I always ask, tell me something good.
Something good. Oh my gosh. Let's be bold. Let's be great. Let's grab the lessons from 2021 and embark on 2022 with all of the uncertainty that it's going to bring us, because in that there's going to be so much opportunity. So if we look forward, we can anticipate what might we learn, and that will pull us into the new possibilities.
Love it. I love the optimism, because without that, there's always a couple ways to look at everything, and so looking at it with rose-colored glasses always beats the doom and gloom that a lot of people walk around with these days, right?
Exactly.
So tell us about the beginning. I know that in my introduction, I know you did a lot of teaching, which I have some questions about, and I know you're a professional speaker, as I am more fresh at that and getting into it. I just got my first paying agreement yesterday for a summertime pretty big convention, so I'm really psyched about that. So I want to kind of figure out how. I like to ask about how people's transitions through their lives. So were you always kind of a teacher right out of school?
I wasn't always a teacher. Well, I guess in a way I was always a teacher, because even when I was little, I would grab my 3 younger brothers and sisters, and I would sit them down and play teacher. And this was in Iowa when we couldn't go outside to play because it was snowing and so forth. I would play teacher. So I think it's deep within me that I always wanted to be involved in learning. And from there, I did go on, and I was a 7th grade teacher. And then I went in. My background, though, was marketing and corporate communications, and my first career was in that field. And then I was
marketing and communications.
Yes.
And that was it an ad company, or was it for
it was for
radio station? Or
I worked for different corporations. So I was in the defense industry, I was in the semiconductor industry, and then I started working for a small boutique consulting firm, management consulting firm, owned by Dr. Perry Gluckman. And I was doing communication work and marketing for the firm. And then I was there a couple months, and he said, I want you to do business development. And I said, what am I selling? And he said, he sent me away for 4 days to Dr. W. Edwards Deming's 4-day seminar focused on quality and continual improvement and transformation.
And that's where you kind of got into that stream of developing the relationships on a different level, where you could, instead of kind of thinking about selling, you more thought about connecting. Is that kind of fair to say? That what
Yes,
did he teach you?
I didn't really sell. For one thing, even when I was in marketing and communications, I was extremely, and my some of my friends now and my clients, when I tell them I used to be excruciatingly shy, they don't believe me.
Wow.
So the shyness didn't start transforming until I was in my 30s and working with Perry, and then he introduced me to Dr. Deming, and they were both my mentors. And that was in the late 1980s. And then they taught me how to consult, how to teach people Dr. Deming's philosophy of management, which he had taught the Japanese and helped them turn around after World War II and become a global competitor.
Wow.
And then Dr. Deming worked with the CEOs of Ford and General Motors to help save our auto industry. And Perry and our consultants worked with some huge companies like HP and 3Com at the time, as well as some small ones. And long story short, I had ended up attending 20 of Dr. Deming's 4-day seminars, co-founding the Bay Area Deming User Group, which was the largest study group in the world. On a monthly basis for over 15 years, we met to study and talk about how to apply Dr. Deming's philosophy of management and how
So
do
what were
leaders.
some of those bullet points of his management? How was his management different than what the times were in the 90s? It sounds like it went into the early 2000s then.
Yes. And at the time, the quality movement was really hot. So there were people who focused on quality. They talked about quality and continual improvement, but they had no methodology they were just buzzwords. And Dr. Deming offered a theoretical foundation of management. There was theories there to support what he was talking about and how he could help leaders personally transform their thinking and their beliefs and challenge their assumptions, and then help them to actually apply it. That's how Japan could turn around so quickly and become a global competitor. That's how we saved our auto industry in the 1980s and 90s, was using Dr. Deming's philosophy. So those nuggets are, yes, there's a focus on quality, which we're lacking these days. Focus on the customer, a focus on continual improvement, creating new markets and products, and a focus on innovation. So those things were part of the foundation, what he talked about. But a lot of people could talk about those words, and they still do. Not so much quality, but
Sure. Well,
they
Tony Robbins specifically says business is only two things: marketing and innovation.
yes.
And,
And
and when
I remember meeting Tony he came to Dr. Deming's seminar. He came to Dr. Deming's 4-day seminar, and there were some famous people, back in the days, decades ago, and today, that attended Dr. Deming's seminar because they wanted to learn, they wanted to transform, or their businesses. There were CEOs that attended with multi-million dollar and billion-dollar businesses that were
yeah,
struggling, and they came to learn from him. How can we turn it around?
yeah. So when you say innovation, and like we said, marketing and innovation is change, innovation is progress and evolution. But how does that apply to leadership, innovating leadership from that era to this era, or from that era to the one you were in to now? What would you say defines innovation when it comes to leadership?
Oh, I love those two words together, because we're really talking, when we talk about transformation, which was what Dr. Deming was about, we're talking about innovation in leadership thinking. So when people become managers, executives, leaders, they bring with them a lot of best practices, management fads, old beliefs and assumptions. So some people think, oh, we're starting a company or we're growing our company. Now we need performance appraisals. We need arbitrary numerical goals. We need basically goals, and we need
Yeah.
budgets, and we need to hold individuals accountable. All wrong.
Wow.
Those are the things that they need to stop doing, because
Mm.
they focus on what every company, if you say, okay, what are your values? Integrity, honesty, collaboration, teamwork, cooperation, those are some that many have. So I start asking them questions. Okay, you have a value of collaboration, but do you have performance appraisals? And they say, oh, yes, yes. And I say, okay, so with those, then you rank and rate the people, you judge, criticize, blame the people, and you create a culture where there's internal competition, and yet you expect the people to collaborate and cooperate.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how I teach, because I ask the questions so that they discover some of the things that they're doing that destroy the thinking, that destroys their culture, that destroys collaboration. Especially organizations need to have what Dr. Deming called was constancy of purpose. I call it a compelling aim. What's your compelling aim? What's your purpose? And then get your people working together, learning together, working together, improving together, and innovating together. When they do that, then I tell the executives, get out of the way of your people, because they will take you where you've never been before. One client called, business owner, he had a $30 million company, said, Marcia, I want to take it to 35 or 40 million, but I have all these problems. And he listed about 10 or 15 problems. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he said, can you help? And I said, I don't know. Let me take a look. We took the company from 30 million to 300 million.
Yes, that one. That one gets a. See, Brad Lee has the bomb, right? He drops it and it makes a cool noise. I got to come up with a noise because I melt the walls. Because that, and I did this before I saw Brad Lee's bomb, by the way. But I love that. I guess a follow-up question on the values, real quick, because I got some other questions about what you just went through with the valuations. But once they learn your philosophy and see your perspectives, what do their values end up becoming if not for those typical keywords? What are some new innovative values that you see companies use that do support this leadership philosophy?
I talk about that in my book, Pivot, Disrupt, Transform, because part one of the book is the things that people need to stop doing first. Because if they don't stop the bad practices, the best practices and the management fads, if they add things, it's like putting, I liken it to, it's like putting fresh strawberry jam on moldy toast.
Oh, or lipstick on a
So,
pig.
yeah, exactly. So we want to throw out the moldy toast first, and then get something fresh to put the jam on. But you've got to get rid of, the bad things. But if I just walked into a company, I said, get rid of these things, people would resist horribly,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's our comfort zone. It's what they know. But instead, if I take them through a couple of day process where they discover themselves, and over time, what isn't working, they didn't know those things had such a horrible, devastating impact on their business. That's why they're in decline, or that's why they cannot accelerate at the pace they want to. It's it's because those rocks in the river are slowing down their flow. So what we do is I help them learn about, so this is the foundation that they need. They need to understand and learn systems thinking, statistical thinking. So they're looking at data over time and in context. They need to use run charts and control charts, not look at this data point this month and compare it to that data point a year ago.
Right.
That doesn't work. It's two single data points and doesn't show any trending.
Yeah, try to look at 19 and 20 and see how that gets you.
Exactly.
Without knowing what's going on in the world.
Right.
You know, is that kind of have to do with leading indicators and lagging indicators also? Could you kind of subscribe to that I don't know, management tool?
So not so much. Those aren't terms I really use, because I'm looking at a system and trying to understand the system by looking at the data that we can measure over time.
Right.
Another fad that we're getting into, though, is this data science, data analytics, data, measuring everything to bits and to death. And honestly, if an organization really is leading its organization well, a CEO and executive team can work off of one sheet of paper. They they basically know that what their key measures are, and it's not all about the bottom line. That's the last measure, because that's only the result of everything else they've focused on.
Right. Yeah. That's what I mean by lagging and leading indicators. It's not about how many numbers, but of the numbers you're looking at, is it a leading indicator? Meaning, if you could tell it it's moving, you can see why it's moving. You can correct that before it goes down, or you can improve on it so it goes up. Whereas a lagging indicator would be, oh crap, here's the result of it. It's too late to do anything about it now. So that knowing the difference between if it's something that you can change by looking at it, or do you look at it when it's too late, is kind of the difference between those two numbers. And that's kind of where, and it was from a book. I forget the name of the book too, by the way. It's some book, but I found value in it though, and understanding which numbers to look at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would have to explore that more, because what you don't want to do is react to a number. You have to respond to the numbers over time and see if they're in control or out of control. But that's the statistical thinking that I would say very few executives understand. And if they react to a number, that's called tampering, and that will introduce into their system more variation, which makes them go out of control. Or what any executive team wants, or any team, is they want to have better and better control of their processes, of their system, of their organization, of their connection to their customer.
Sure.
So that's why the systems thinking, statistical thinking focus on theory of knowledge, which means how well are they planning. There's a tool called the PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. And if companies do use that tool rapidly, even some companies can use it 20 times a day. Other companies can only use it once a week. It depends on their process. And then the fourth one is theory of psychology. And that's about, how do people learn? How do people communicate? How are they motivated? And that's where all the mental wellness things can link in, and diversity and so forth. And that mental wellness is becoming more and more significant. It's part of the foundation.
Yeah, that's where I'm living these days, with identifying behavior types and styles, using the DISC and the 12 drivers and all that, emotional IQ, or emotional quotient, figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are as your behavior styles, and then figuring out how to speak to others on to their behavioral styles instead, kind of like the platinum rule.
Exactly.
But to your point, and to your systems in pivot, disrupt, transform, are these things explained and laid out in that book? Is that what that book is?
Yes, it's first, well, I put it into 3 parts. The part 1 is stop these best
Killers,
practices
worst
that
practices.
are will make your company dysfunctional and lead you to decline, struggles, and sometimes failure. So those are eye openers, and I ask a lot of questions. I have a leadership assessment in there so that people can see in a page, how are they doing? And then part 2 is, how can we think differently? How can we transform our thinking? And then part 3 is, how can we apply it? And some of the tools are in there, and also references to read other books.
Yes, yeah.
One of the most important ones, the foundational one, I think, is a fiction book called The
Interesting.
Goal by Goldratt, and it came out more than 30 or 40 years ago, but it is in, probably, 30 different languages, and multi-millions of copies have been sold. And that's a book that every management team loves. And if I don't tell them about it and they find out about it, I'm in hot water, because I go, Marcia, why didn't you tell us about this?
So when you wrote the book, how was it? How long ago was this, by the way?
3 years ago.
3 years. And in 3 years, I guess, so I'm going back to the person where you helped transform his company from 30 to 300 million, which, first of all, you said he had 10 problems that he knew about, which is a lot for someone to know that they have problems. Most of the time, they don't even realize what their problem is because they've just been doing what they've always done. And to get it to 30 million, a lot of people would consider that very successful in its own. So was this book and the principles, is this like a proof of concept to that company jumping up tenfold? Is it?
So that's what my clients do. They exponentially grow, or some don't care about growth. They care about creating a healthier workplace. Some of them, some owners, or executives, when they call me in, they're near bankruptcy. They don't tell me that on the phone.
Yeah.
But we talk, and I say, this is my process. And I go in and assess, okay, where are they at? And I ask as many people as I can, a lot of questions. And then that's when I discover, oh my gosh, maybe they have a month or 2 of payroll
Wow.
left, and maybe they've borrowed the money or from their equity line or whatever to bring me in, but they didn't tell me that until I get.
Wow.
And I sometimes have a month or 2 to stop the bleeding, get the teams, pulled together, and get that organization turned around and on their journey. And some of those journeys are very fast, like just in a few months, and then they start to scale, so they can triple their business in 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years. And so that's the fun. I mean, when I see that so many organizations are either in a crisis or they're just struggling. They're maintaining, but they're struggling, and they're struggling with the same problems they've had for 10 years.
Yes.
Then they can transform, because they can transform in how they think, what they do, how they interact. And that's a big part of it, because systems thinking is about connecting all the dots. How do all the things interact to serve the market, to serve customers?
Ah, yes.
So, yeah,
Keywords right there, to serve.
yes.
One of my favorite Twilight, that's a BAM. That's a wall melter, only for the viewers. But one of my favorite Twilight zones is to serve man. And I don't know if everyone remembers that one, but it's the aliens come to the Earth, and everyone thinks that they're here to serve man, and they want to put everyone in the spaceship and take them to their planet. So everyone's going, and they realize at the end of it, it's a cookbook, and it's how to serve man for
Oh,
the aliens.
oh my
So
goodness.
that's pretty funny. That always reminds me of that. But to serve is one of my kind of the pivotal foundations of how you perceive what you're doing. Your perspective is, every day. It's one of my 7 questions.
Yes.
I have an acronym harness, and one of them is the S in harness is serving. Who am I serving? Am I serving myself? Am I serving the company? Am I serving the clients? Am I serving the community? There's something, my family. There's something that I'm doing. And if any of those answers are myself, I have to really reevaluate what I'm doing, where I'm spending my time,
Right.
because I've always gotten 10 times more reward and more income and more connections and more recognition when I do things to serve others. And that took a long time.
Yeah.
But pivot, disrupt, transform, how leaders beat the odds and survive. That's the whole name, right? I got it at the bottom now because I was looking at it on your website. And by the way, you can get it, this book. Well, let me go to my other screen here at your website, which is, oh, that's not it right here. This one is, I've got a lot of things going on here. Learn more about Marcia at www.mdaszko.com. M-co, but it's not D-A-S-H, it's D-A-S-Z-K-O for the listeners, m-co.com. And that you can find the book, Pivot, Disrupt, and Transform, or Pivot, Disrupt, Transform, there on the website, how leaders beat the odds and survive. And I would probably do a reboot and call it Beat the Odds and Thrive, because it sounds like that's what you teach these folks how to do.
Yes. Yeah. First, they need to, some survive, others thrive. So some are in crisis and they come out of crisis, and others are doing really well, but they want to scale. And so that's where we go. We say, okay, but I don't let them choose an arbitrary numerical goal, because when that client said, let's go to 40 million, I said, okay, you've told me that. Don't share that number with anyone else, because I don't know where you can go.
It's a limiting factor by then.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And unless you do a time right, it's like, I want to do 40 million in 6 months, that probably would be a little bit better. But even that, anything's possible, right? The right tweak, the right customer, the right connect, the right deal. And you've just, you could be whatever it will take you, letting the universe do its thing. Exactly. People outthink the universe, and that's a mistake.
Right.
So
I've seen business owners who I even thought, oh my gosh, they're 25 million. I could take them to 500 million. No, I could take this company to $1 billion, but they won't go if they don't want to. No. And it's more than change. It's transformation. They need to transform, because if people change, they can change back. That's not transformation.
Oh, right. So change is change, and it's fluid. Transformation is more solid. It more is evolution. Transforming.
It keeps happening. You never stop transforming, but change, mere change is not good enough. Change management is a huge fad. I don't hear it as much about it.
Oh, yes.
Change management, huge fad, because it talked about just change, but the second that people are uncomfortable, they don't want to leave their comfort zone.
And that's usually second one.
Requires it.
Right? Second one, nobody likes change immediately.
Right,
it's not like they like trying new things, and then it's uncomfortable, let's go back. Immediately, they feel uncomfortable and they go back. Exactly. So I want to kind of pivot. Speaking of pivoting, pivoting into speaking, because I know that you're a good speaker. And who are the people that you speak, and how often are you speaking? How often do you like to speak? What is the road look like for you, or the spoke of our businesses? Coaching, advising, writing, speaking, they all lead to kind of make up our business. Personally, speaking is my favorite. It's the number one thing on my board, is to speak. Where does that land on yours, and who do you like to speak with, or to, or for?
It's interesting because with all the labels of, I guess teacher sticks the best with me, but and that's facilitating learning, not telling people and not
Yes.
having hundreds of PowerPoint slides. I don't like those at all. It's very experiential. My teaching is very different, but so when I think about, speaker, consultant, coach, people ask me these things. Oh, are you an executive coach? Are you this and that? I don't like labels.
Hmm.
So I just want to help people, help executives, because working with executive teams and boards of directors, I can really help them make a difference. And that goes throughout their organization, to their customers and vendors, to their communities, and to society. So that's the transformational difference I want to make.
Hmm.
And so I would say I'm speaking when I'm consulting with my clients. I'm teaching 2-day leadership classes, or we have executive retreats. We have monthly management team meetings where, if they're lucky, or if they're old luck, but nowadays they don't want to do it either, they might have 20 or 30 minutes to talk about the numbers, the profits, the sales, the forecasts, that stuff. And they even learn that that's not the most important things to talk about.
Good.
So
Yeah.
that speaking, I love to speak to an audience that is eager to learn, eager to make a difference, to serve, to change, in a transformational way. So I really want to answer questions and help
Yes.
people think differently, to go and experience new and different places that can make a difference to their constituencies, whether it's students or association members or corporate customers, nonprofit, the people that nonprofits serve, the military.
Yes.
Um, it goes across the board.
That's great. So I have one really running theme on this show, and really it is about business, but it's also about adversity and overcoming adversity. And so a lot of my kind of base comes from the nitty-gritty world, and we all kind of been through it to get to where we are, and we try really hard not to. So one thing I'd like to talk about just for a second is, can you share a story with us about some adversity that you went to concerning your travels, your journey becoming to where you are, that you thought, bam, that was it. This is a life changer. It's not, besides 2020, we don't like to go that, it's too easy. But a failure that you thought, oh crap, I just, this just totally reset me and I don't know what I'm going to do. But without that, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be as effective or as wise and as connected. Do you have any of those stories for us?
So many ideas are popping into my head.
Good.
I feel like it's, the sparkler or something.
I'm waiting for the one person to go, no, my life's been pretty perfect.
Oh,
I've never met that person yet. And I bet they're pretty boring.
yeah. It's one of my big ahas. I don't see things as failures, but as learning moments, maybe those defining moments people talk about. But like I mentioned before, I was so shy. And after I
Mm,
got, graduated from college and got my master's degree, that's when I met Dr. Perry Gluckman and Dr. Deming and other mentors. And that was some of my biggest aha years, because once you get some degrees and you get that piece of paper, it's like, okay, the major learning is done, check it off,
yeah.
check off that box. And then, so tied in with my shyness, and I had checked off those boxes, I had no idea what was in store for me. I
Right.
mean, when I started working with, especially Perry, in 3 months, I felt like I was going through a PhD program. My reading, my studying was intense and deep. And then we would have 3, 4, 5-hour conversations about leadership, about motivation, about systems thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so fortunate to be exposed
It was almost like
to
immersion therapy, right?
exactly. That is a perfect word. And that's what executives need today. I was
Yes.
talking to one of my friends. We're going to be doing some work together, and she's a retired Army colonel, and that's what we're putting together as a leadership immersion, because
Mm.
people need just 2 or 3 days to step aside, step back, and totally shift
Yep.
their thinking that they had before, just like it happened to me. That's what they need to go through. You can give them bits and pieces, but you need the dots to connect, and you need to facilitate that connection. So anyone who's struggling, anyone who sees potential, but they don't quite know how to get there, those are the people that need to come together with their
Mm-hmm.
teams and say, I want to learn. I'm committed to transform. I don't know what that means, but I need to shift where we're at. That's where the pivot comes.
Yeah.
Some leaders saw the need to pivot, and that's so innovative leaders, great leaders are pivoting all the time. They're pivoting their thinking and what they do and how they interact and how they make their decisions,
I
how
love it.
they serve. So that, I guess that's
It's a good one. I mean, change it. You get out of school and you go, I just spent the last, you were very well educated. So it was many, many years. And you go, I'm just starting, on the hard stuff. This is the hard stuff.
exactly.
This is where the real life advice and wisdom, and you can only get that through time and through going through it. And it sounds like you were lucky. And I say lucky because I hate that word, but we are
You're right.
lucky to be born in the country we're born in. We're lucky to be born in the era we're born in. You have nothing to do with that. And you're lucky at a young age, not an older age, but at a young age, to be around people who can guide you correctly and care about you and make sure. And then you being engaged and realizing that has nothing to do with luck. That is not luck. So, but that you're exposed to the people that you were, um,
I was
and took
fortunate,
advantage of
and
it.
now I'm responsible. I'm
You are, yes.
responsible to
The
make a difference and
legacy.
help other people.
Yeah.
And when I teach leadership in my MBA classes, my students, it might be their last class that they're taking in their MBA, and the question they ask me is, Marcia, why? This is my last class for my MBA. Why am I just learning this now?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
That's a
I
good
don't know. We
question.
just don't have these things in our curriculum,
No.
and we don't have these things in our education system. And that is part of the reason why our education system is failing. It's broken as a system.
Well, it hasn't pivoted. It hasn't transformed. It's stuck in the, I don't know when this stuff was created, the 20s, 30s, 40s. It's still the same, different curriculum. Uh, I personally don't have a 11th grade. I would guess I'd say 11th grade education. Um, I didn't graduate high school. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't graduate college. I did take a couple of college courses when I was at Comcast, when they paid for me to go take some management courses because I thought it would help me get promoted, and it did. But so I really do work with a lot of people who maybe don't have the funds, the means, the grades, the aptitude, or the attitude, or the time to go to college. They're spit out right in the world. Maybe they're living in a circumstance where they need to get their hands dirty and make an income, but they don't want to work for someone else. So I help a lot of kids get right into business. I mean, I'm working with Junior Achievement and uh, some other associations for that help children right out of high school get busy in business. And so I do think that college as a whole, and I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but it needs to change because it really is doing the American youth a disservice if they keep down the same road. And And people like Mike Rowe and all this, they really show it. There's a lot of trades, a lot of things you can do, but you still need to learn mindset, business, and financial IQ. That's what I teach first before I teach strategies and tactics. Anything that has to do with their business, first it's mindset, business elements, and financial. So that's the base. And then from there, we can get into how do you want to make money?
That's
Physically.
why we need an education system in this country. A system looks at the whole. They see that it's not just college. We desperately need trade schools. What we lack, and now that we look at, baby boomers retiring, we're going to be without many, many, many trades.
Right.
It's really hard to get, a handyman, an electrician, a plumber, a
Right.
machinist. And how can we survive as a nation without the fundamentals?
Right.
So yes, we need the doctors and the engineers and so forth, but that's the thing. We're all like dots, and all the dots have to connect.
Yes.
Working together make the difference. And
working
together, learning and working together, we can have a healthy nation. But without that, without an educational foundation, we're in a deep dive right now. And that really concerns me more than anything. And I think that the CEO of Xerox a couple decades ago, David Carnes, he said, our education system is in crisis. But if we fix that, and it takes leadership with knowledge to fix that, that's a root cause of all the problems. And anything is lack of leadership with knowledge about systems thinking, et cetera, that I spoke about. But he said, we can fix a host of other problems if we fix the education system, the gangs, the drugs, almost any problem.
So you're not talking college, you're talking about from beginning, right? From the early ages. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally.
Education overall. Because
totally.
if we fix that as a system, then we don't have the problems, the mental health, the families, the drugs, and so forth, because we catch those things early and we get people the help that they need. We teach them the things that they need in order to, like you said, survive and thrive.
Yes, that's great. So to come to the end here, I know that your book is on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles on the website. They can click through and get to it.
Yes.
So I'd like people, what do you got coming up that we need to know about that we can support and help you?
Oh my gosh. So that sounds like a big question, but let me just focus in. So what I really want are more and more opportunities to speak to leaders, managers, executives, people who want to make a difference across any sector.
Mm-hmm.
And if they even if they get a copy of my book and share it and discuss it with their management team first, and then call me, and get the book, The Goal. Those two, I would highly recommend that people get and discuss, and then kind of self-assess, where are we at? What help do we need? But they won't know, because they are in the system.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Dr. Deming said, profound knowledge comes from the outside and by invitation only. They need to invite me in to have a conversation, to teach them, to facilitate an executive retreat, to deeply focus on learning so they can make a bigger difference.
Profound change, profound, what is it? Profound what? Knowledge comes from the outside and by invitation only.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Well, on that note, I thank you very much for spending your time with us, your morning with us here at the GoPROcast. It's all about mindset. It's about being a professional. And no matter if you're sweeping the floor or the top executive, That's what we're about. We
Yes.
speak to them all. So thank you,
Natural
Marcia.
leadership is from within, and it's across the whole organization.
It should be, or else you're never going to get anywhere. We could keep talking for hours about it because I think we see so much alike. So thank you
Exactly.
for sharing all your knowledge with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Jeremy.
Okay, we'll be back. Well, I appreciate every single person who's listening or watching or participating across the TikToks and YouTubes and the podcast channels and Spotify's. We love your support. We are here for you. This is why I do this show. I connect with the broadest professionals across the country because it helps me spread their views and their perspectives to you. So thank you for being here today on the GoPROcast. We will see you next time.